Hello everybody, this is Ugly Season 2, Episode 6, but before Episode 6 and the events of the wedding, we are going to discuss a little bit what happened before, because basically all the events in Season 2 somehow revolves not only around Ugly, but people he's surrounded by. And in previous episodes, Antonia played a crucial role in Ugly's new life after he signed to Chaos Records label. And basically she played the most important part of him becoming a different person right now. Because basically after this connection with Antonia, he kind of became more brave, I would say, because she made him basically more brave person. Basically, Antonia is Luciana's daughter, and Luciana is the director of the label that Vgly signed to. So let's say Luciana controls Vgly, but she cannot control Antonia because Antonia, even though she is Luciana's daughter, she feels more freedom in her actions because she can do whatever she wants actually, and she doesn't have to do like anything that Vgly does because she can get away with a lot of things because of her mother basically is the director of the label she signed to as well. So basically in Vgly's case, he needs basically to prove everybody, including Luciana, Antonia's mother, that he is ready to produce his first album, to record finally his songs. And once basically he was able to get this studio professional one, Luciana basically confronts Vgly and telling him basically that he needs to make up with another rapper, another musician, from whom basically Vgly stole a chain, and basically he stole the chain to return that to whom that chain belonged basically. But Luciana basically doesn't want any trouble with any of her artists, and she is telling Vgly basically that he needs to make up with all of them and to make basically, peace with Rusty Steel. Rusty Steel is another artist from Chaos Records, and Vgly has to basically make Rusty Steel to come to press conference and to meet his other friend, a musician as well, and to take part in this press conference. So this is his mission at the beginning of Vgly Season 2, Episode 5. And now basically he needs to come back to the man basically from whom he stole that chain. But initially that chain basically belonged to another artist. And after he came back to this studio, basically Rusty told him to fuck off basically, because now there is no way Vgly is welcome, in this studio because he basically stole the chain. And this is basically the beginning of the new conflict, because basically Rusty Steel is kind of jealous of Vgly and we're gonna talk about this later, but Vgly is basically Vgly's beat maker. Meanwhile, he is trying basically to convince El Capo, which is the rapper basically from whom Rusty Steel stole that chain. He's trying to convince him to come to that press conference to participate, because this press conference basically focused on Chaos Records artists, and particularly El Capo and Rusty Steel. They were basically friends, and in 2017 they just, separated after an argument, and basically they are currently enemies. And basically Vgly and his beatmaker, they are trying to kind of put them together and make up things between two artists. But another surprise was waiting for Vgly. Once he came back to this studio, he found out basically that Antonia, current love interest of Vgly and the daughter of Luciana, the producer of the label that Vgly signed to, she's dating basically Rusty Steel. And this was a huge surprise, because basically Antonia, before that, she basically expressed interest in Vgly, and particularly basically she helped him to find the chain and to get into this studio finally to record some songs. But now basically she is just, warning Vgly that her boyfriend Rusty Steel is someone he basically has to stay away from, because basically she is dating that artist Rusty Steel because for her image basically, or for her career, he is kind of, the boost just to push forward her career, and or even just for image itself. But she has no real feelings for Rusty Steel, and this became just obvious after Vgly performed a song that he wrote for Antonia. And after Antonia found out that he dedicated this song for her, she was basically falling kind of in love with Vgly, but that was basically even before she started listening to this song, because this song was just the final hit of Vgly, the final, weapon that he used basically to make Antonia finally realize that he is the man she needs to be with, not the toxic one, Rusty Steel, who treats her like an animal, This is what she said, literally. And after basically they convinced Rusty Steel to participate in that press conference, Vgly's beatmaker was able to convince El Capo to participate in this press conference as well. But he uses the same tactics that he used with Trippy Bacha in season 1. If you remember, in season 1 there was another situation similar to this one, when basically he was trying to get Trippy Bacha on Vgly's song, and he used the same seduction or whatever, and he kissed Trippy Bacha as well. He kissed his producer. That's right, not Trippy Butcher, but he used the same tactic with Trippy Butcher's producer. But Trippy Butcher was kind of, he was kind of, rejecting any opportunity to be on Ugly's song. But Ugly's beatmaker is the one who basically using whatever it takes to get things done, And Ugly has same mentality, but he is more about spontaneity and getting, beefs with another artists, but it also his whatever it takes mentality, but it often just leads everybody, including all the members of his crew, to even more troubles. And this is what actually happened at this press conference, because once basically two artists got together, they found out basically that El Capo's car was shot by Ugly, because basically Rusty Steel made Ugly shoot El Capo's car, and Ugly didn't even know that was El Capo's car. And this way basically he directly confronts El Capo, and two artists basically starting fight again in front of all the journalists. Basically this press conference just failed, and it became even more of a trouble for Ugly, because he contributed to that beef, and he sparked the conflict between two artists again. But basically the most important part why that conflict, again appeared at that press conference, because basically Rusty Steel was particularly aiming at spoiling Ugly's reputation, because he basically revealed that video that Ugly is involved in shooting El Capo's car, that Ugly is just on Rusty Steel's side, that Ugly is basically taking part in activities like shooting other artists' cars and something like this. But basically this whole situation just showed Antonia, his girlfriend, that basically she needs to finally move on from this man, because he is so toxic, and basically she needs somebody like Ugly, since Ugly basically dedicating songs for Antonia. She makes basically obvious that she's about to break up with this artist, Rusty Steel, and she basically running away with Ugly. At this point, basically, the only problem left is Antonia getting involved into Triana and Ugly's relationship. At this point, basically, she is manipulating this relationship, because she has control over not only Ugly, but Triana as well. Because basically once Triana found out that Ugly is hanging out with Antonia, she got kind of jealous, because he was basically spending more time with Antonia and his new label rather than with his girlfriend. And Antonia found this perfect excuse for Ugly to tell basically Triana that Vgly was basically writing song for Triana, his girlfriend, and that this whole time basically he was spending at a studio writing that song. And this way basically Antonia not only making this situation friendly and not showing any obvious interest in breaking them up, in intervening this couple, but she basically making herself at better position because she can control basically both of them, and she can spend time with Vgly, and at the same time she can basically stay friends with Triana. And Vgly is not even aware that Antonia became friends with Triana, but this is not that really important. The most important part is that basically all of the Vgly's crew members, all of them, they are going to the same wedding of one of the Antonia's relatives. And this wedding basically is where everything is about to happen between Antonia, Vgly, and Triana, because basically this whole season just setting the conflict, the love triangle, and this is about to happen at that wedding. And basically Antonia's mother Luciana told Antonia that she has no choice but to go to that wedding, because since this is her family, and even though she is not that close to her family, specifically to her mother, and they just, they have like the worst relationship, mother-daughter relationship, but she agreed to go to that wedding because basically this way she is paying all her, previous troubles. She basically pays off her debt to her mother, since she is basically as well on her mother's label. She needs basically to do something in return, and at least to come to that wedding. But she sees mostly that wedding as another opportunity to get together with Vgly and his girlfriend Triana. This is just obvious that the only intention behind coming to this wedding would be something like make Vgly and Triana, doubt their relationship, and she is about to test the loyalty between Vgly and Triana. She is about to test that relationship at this wedding, but she plays the long game. She plays again with her ex Rusty still, and she is trying to make Vgly jealous. Obviously, she is getting back with Rusty to make Vgly notice Antonia. So her tactics basically is the same basically tactics that her mother Luciana uses when it comes to pushing your career or pushing your label, making new names, big names, and getting new artists on your label. But she's more about the connection between different artists within this label rather than just controlling them, because she is actually seeing Ugly as potential love interest, because in her basically, imagination, Ugly is basically the most suitable partner because they are on the same label, and she is obviously attracted to Ugly, he is attracted to Antonia, but since basically the only implication for Antonia is Triana, not even Antonia's mother, because Antonia's mother doesn't have that type of control over Antonia that Antonia has over Ugly, because Antonia uses the seduction and kind of manipulation with Ugly because she wants him basically to, she wants him to loosen up a little bit and to show that basically he is more brave than he thinks he is. Because with her boyfriend or her ex now, Rusty Steele, you has to be that same aggressive type of person that he is to confront Rusty Steele. You need to use the same weapon that he uses. He uses basically intimidation, and he basically notices that Ugly hitting on his girlfriend or his ex, or they are still like kind of not officially separated, or they are just, they are really just exes. It doesn't matter. He is still using this intimidation to confront Ugly, but this time Ugly is already ready for this because Antonia kind of created that bravery by hooking up with Ugly, by telling him all the things basically that makes him brave, that makes him, confront Rusty Steele, your toxic ex. And after basically he did confront Rusty Steele, he found out basically that Antonia is a friend of Triana, Ugly's girlfriend, which was again a huge surprise. Even though this was kind of obvious and it was coming like from the very beginning of the season 2, but still he was surprised, and she used that basically affection while basically he's under that affection. She uses this manipulation again, and she is trying to seduce his girlfriend Triana. She is trying basically to take control of the situation and to show Triana specifically that she is basically playing her boyfriend and herself, Triana. She is basically playing them both, and she has the actual control when it comes to the artists and Ugly's friends. She is the one basically who is really, ruling this situation. But Ugly's crew, he is basically friends and everybody that he started his career with, they are all kind of struggling with, making this like strong friendship, strong connection with each other, because every time basically they succeed, they face another trouble, another argument, another, another problem basically that they need to face together. But in this TV show, particularly in season 2, a lot of episodes just dedicated to exploring the friendship between the members of Vgly's crew, all the, friends of him, of Vgly. All his friends, basically, they are trying to, break into the top of the music industry. But throughout that basically journey, they are just, getting into more troubles. And finally, Vgly, he is basically trying to use the same basically aggression, the same bravery that other artists have, because it seems like he was lacking this, straightforwardness, this like aggression. And finally, basically, he was starting to implement the same tactic that every artist uses in this TV show, and specifically established artists like Rusty Steele uses this intimidation or like, rattling his, like flexing his, power using this like tactic. And this basically leads to another conflict, but this time Vgly was able to stay away from this trouble. And basically, while he was, arguing with Rusty Steele, Vgly's and Rusty Steele's girlfriends, they basically used this opportunity, specifically Antonia. She finally basically made this like couple, Vgly and Triana, to show the weakest points when basically everybody is distracted and focused on different things. Vgly was so focused on coming to this wedding and introducing himself to another artists, find new connections, new features, new songs, new possibilities. Triana, meanwhile, she was focused more on having fun with Antonia. She wasn't really so like, fixated on using this wedding as a way to basically push her own career. She is not even about that at all. It's all just Vgly and his ambitions. And in this TV show, it's particularly shown perfectly, like how you can basically get blind by that constant, by that constant I don't know, like desire. But no matter what, he was able to basically impress this influence producer, and he was able basically to show to one of the most legendary music producers that basically he is capable of collaborating. And he got another invitation to another event, and this producer, Leland White, at whose basically daughter's wedding they all gathered, he offered Vgly and all his crew to come to his place and to start doing music together. Since he is just the biggest guest of this wedding and this is his daughter's wedding, he basically noticed Vgly while Vgly basically was covering or replacing another artist. He was able to impress all the guests, and including this producer. So now basically while he was pursuing that goal, that dream of his, he was able to basically find finally, something. But at the same time, his relationship with Triana, it proved the weakness. It proved that Vgly basically can lose Triana, or that she can end up basically losing him. At the same time, basically Antonia is only playing your tactics and using basically this manipulation, and it doesn't seem like she is trying basically to connect with Triana emotionally. She is most probably using her as a leverage in her games, in her tactics to manipulate this relationship. And this basically episode 6, which is the latest one, is just ending up on the happy moment for Vgly, but he is not even aware that at the same time his girlfriend and his new love interest Antonia, they are not only friends, but they are hooking up and they can potentially expand this relationship even further to next episodes, or they can be involved emotionally. It can be both. They can be just playing around because they both just high and this is the party, the wedding, everybody is drunk, but at the same time it can be something bigger. It can be real connection, the emotional one. So we will see the answer in next episodes, because this episode just proved that basically we were right about the intentions of Antonia coming to this season. And since she was represented as successful or just a daughter of a successful lady who is running this label, she was obviously, aimed to break up Vgly and Triana, or basically to make Vgly, get into this triangle, love triangle, because this way she can basically shift his focus from the music to this drama, to this relationship, and she can make this work, and she can make this basically beneficial for her own career, because the image she uses is just simple. It's attracting because everybody loves just seeing an artist dating another popular, young, beautiful artist. This is what basically she's doing. She's trying to most probably take Ugly from Triana and to start this new drama. And this way she can keep your career, and she can use their relationship as, like, this boost. So this is what I was trying to explain you in this stream, but it's still just too early to tell, because one more episodes left, or even like it's only a half of the season, and we have like a lot episodes actually, because Ugly season 1 was 14 episodes, and I think that this season, the new season, is gonna be like 14 again. So see you next time with another episode of Ugly, and not only that, maybe something else is going to come out, and we will see. But anyway, thank you for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye.